Everybody, this is John at Ubaldi Reports, the podcast that provides fact, not fiction, on issues impacting America, whether globally or domestically. With me, as always, is my good friend and co-host, retired combat Marine wounded veteran Joe Bitts.
Purple Heart.
Purple Heart's recipient. I served 30 years. Unfortunately, I didn't step on anything I wasn't supposed to.
You unfortunately didn't step on anything? I fortunately didn't step on.
Joe was walking in some places he probably shouldn't have walked. But anyway, we talk about issues that are impacting America. And today we were following up on the last couple podcasts as we talked about, the kind of realignment of the political parties and where they support. But right now we're talking about the issues. Right now it seems like both candidates are just tearing each other down. One is you're a horrible president. The other one, you're a threat to democracy. But there are a lot of issues that are confronting America. The economy is not doing as well as it should. I don't care what the president says. More people are facing higher rent, higher utility costs, gas, food. Mortgages rates are higher than they ever were before. So, and then if you look at the jobless numbers, the president claims to claim in January there was over, I believe it was 375,000 jobs created. But after that, the following month's job report downgrades the previous report. That's been happening over the past year. So instead of 375,000 jobs, it was less than 200,000, and majority of those are part-time or they're in the government, private.
Coming soon, there's going to be 50 jobs coming from us.
Yeah, so hopefully these are issues that, and then you've got crime, then you have immigration seems to be done unvetted, and then you got all the problems overseas with Ukraine, Israel, what's going on in Africa and China.
So we had like the police officer in New York, he was gunned down.
Correct.
His funeral, there was 4 presidents in the area.
Correct.
And only one of those presidents was the one that actually attended the funeral.
Yeah, I mean,
in a city that just sued him for almost half $1 billion.
Correct.
It's just, and the other 3 couldn't care less.
Well, it was bad optics. I don't know who you decided to do it. Blocks away, you have 3 presidents: President Biden, President Clinton, and President Obama. The event to go was $250 for a single ticket.
Lizzo was there.
Then it was $100,000 if you wanted a picture taken with the 3 presidents, and if you really wanted to get that special treatment, you had to donate $500,000. But the question is,
$500,000 for your campaign.
Who were these individuals? These weren't, as Joe Biden talks about, he's all Scranton Joe. I'm blue collar Joe. Blue collar workers couldn't afford to attend that fundraiser.
So, I mean, actually kind of like curtailing is that we're opening up a business. We're able to open, but we're going to need some funding. And when we're talking to the people about helping us out with funding, they want us all, the majority of the people are going to be local. So kind of leading over to like that, yes, who are their donors? And what do they want, kind of thing like that.
Well, but in business, they're going to those who are contributing or those who want to invest, they're going to want a return on that investment. Now, how you set it up, that's up to you, Ray, and the other owners of your business. But businesses and individuals invest in businesses all the time, but it all comes down to what do they want for their investment. They want something back. Mm-hmm. And this is where you're going to have to sustain that. But I was talking with Ray, the other owner of the company, when you were getting some loans, you paid a much higher interest rate than you would have had if this was done 3 years ago. Yeah. Because interest rates are much higher. But then you look at the cost of doing business. This is what we've said many times before. You open a business. I've started a business. I made a lot of mistakes because I didn't know anybody that started a business. Mm-hmm. So you start your business, and now you're paying rent right now, your utilities. You're not even open yet because you're waiting on certain licenses from the county. Yeah. And you just don't walk into a county office, here you go, and you pay your fee and get your license. It doesn't work like that.
Wish it would work like that.
They've got to have inspections. You've got to have the county come out and inspect. The fire marshal has to come out and inspect. You have to have electricians. You have to pay out even before you make money.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people don't understand. They just think you make all this money, but you forget the back end of it. And if your business goes broke, everybody that invested loses their money. You lose everything you put in. Forget the time. What about all the financial contributions or the finance that went into that? You don't get the benefits like, oh, I can go apply for unemployment now. It doesn't work like that. You lose everything.
And if they want to hear more, they can go back to our podcast of the cost of doing business.
Yeah, but I mean,
to get a little bit more of a better
but all these issues, like right now, let's take two issues. California, just as of April 1st, California went to $20 an hour for all fast food workers.
Yeah, you know what else they did? A lot of those places are now automated.
Yeah, and I used to work at a fast food restaurant when my business cratered.
Yeah.
I worked at Chick-fil-A, and I used to talk to the general manager all the time, and he says if they went to a $20 minimum wage, we're going to automate.
Yeah.
So California is automating. A lot of the fast food restaurants out there are shedding jobs. They're laying people off, or they're curtailing some of the hours, hiring more part-time.
Just today when I took the kids out for some burgers, and this was like a little bit more of it wasn't a fast food chain, but it was like a restaurant style. They had kiosks. Like you would have to order your stuff like there. And I just looked at them like, can I get a person I want to get my order to? Versus.
But we had someone come in the store I work at. And the first thing he said, I kind of asked him, he owns a steakhouse. He's a small business owner. He and his brother started a steakhouse. And so I asked him.
We got to go there.
What's your greatest expense? And he goes, right away, labor.
Yeah.
Labor's our greatest expense. Do you got labor?
It's going to be for our
Well, it's going to be your
business,
too. You got labor. You got a rent on your building. Your utilities are going up. And utility costs for all businesses, even individuals, have skyrocketed. Mm-hmm. So you got all those factors in, and then you've got supply chain issues because you're going to be ordering supplies. I was talking with one of the suppliers for us, and they make most of their product in Jacksonville. But I was telling them with President Biden pushing this EV mandate for all long-haul trucks, it's going to cost them more to deliver that product. There's a gentleman in my church who owns a long-haul tractor trailer companies, and he went to Daimler Chrysler out in Germany. This was, I think, last year, and they're all in on the EV. So I asked him, what is the range of an EV long haul trailer? Mm-hmm. He said about 125 to 150 miles. What's the range of a average long haul trailer for regular diesel? And he goes about 800 to 1,000.
Yeah. So
it would take 4 stops to charge up your vehicle. That's going to take time, mm-hmm. But then you also got to factor in the driver can only drive a certain amount of hours before he's mandated by the federal government to get rest. So if you put all these mandates on the interstate trucking system, the only companies that are going to be around are the corporate trucking companies. All your mom and pops can't afford the additional cost, so they're out of business. So now let's say you had 20 different long-haul trucking companies. Now you're down to maybe 5, maybe 10 the most. So these are things have unintended consequences. Bernie Sanders, the Democratic Socialist, which is kind of running, you might as well say socialist, from Vermont, mm-hmm. He's instituting a bill to mandate a 32-hour work week, but yet you get paid with all pay and benefits for 40. Mm-hmm. And he's touting, I read his article in CNN today, and he's touting all this, like Germany and France has a vibrant economy. Yeah, they do. But the French economy is only growing about 1%. German economy.
And the populace of the United States compared to other countries, we far exceed them.
But we do. But even if you look at their economy, France economy is only growing about 1%. The German economy is retracting. They're looking at something that happened in Japan in the 90s. They called it the lost decade. It's just low growth, and it's just they can't afford what they're doing.
So can you just pause for a second, look at TikTok, and just let them know that they can ask some questions other than putting Trump in the comments?
Yeah, you can.
Ask away, guys. Come on.
Please ask some questions that want to be answered. I'll try my best to answer. If I can't, Joe will chime in. But we get Trump. We get that. I just would like to, if you have any questions of what's going on. But there are all these issues that are going on that is just not being addressed. And President Biden, beyond what everybody thinks of him, has never really held a job outside of government. He became a senator when he was elected in 1972. And think about this. He was elected and started serving in January of 73. A lot of Americans weren't even born yet. You weren't even born yet in what year were you born?
77.
So Joe Biden was a senator for 4 years before you were born.
Jesus.
So, and then he talks, I'm going to take care of America. He was part of shipping jobs overseas. And all he's done is ruin the areas. Look at the cities across America. Chicago, New York, San Francisco. I mean, California is the disaster. New York is facing billions of dollars in budget deficit. And Illinois is facing the same problem. And their only answer is to raise more taxes. But is that the answer?
Crap. Did I lose it? There was a statement.
Okay.
Hold on.
But but these are issues that are impacting America. I mean, talking, and like I said last week, I'm not saying this in a vacuum that I'm doing like phenomenal.
Okay. Brian weighs in. He says the weight of the EV trucks is 30% higher. Tires wear, road wears, electric grid, CO2 input would be higher.
No, and I would believe he's correct. And the other thing they need to factor in, this whole EV mandate. Right now, up until recently, the utility usage was pretty much flat. But now we're going into AI, and AI needs huge data centers, and that's going to take a lot of electricity. So the national grid operators are saying utility usage is going to skyrocket. At the same time, we're downgrading fossil fuel. So we're trying to get all this from wind and solar, which is an impossible tax. Germany tried it, it failed. Australia tried it, it failed. Even Sri Lanka went into these social green New Deal type thing, and they collapsed their economy.
All right, Missy Loves comes in, and she says, do you really think the economy can be fixed?
Yeah, I do. It can be fixed. It can be fixed in a couple areas.
Could it be fixed under this administration, or is it going to be fixed next administration?
It's going to have to be fixed in the next administration. Or if this administration got reelected, he would have to do a total 180. And the way they need to fix it, you got to get people back to work so our labor participation rates goes up. Mm-hmm. You need to impact and help, not forget corporate America. You need to think, how does this impact small business?
Yeah.
The other thing you need to do, you need to look at our educational system. Our educational system is a joke. Just this week, I looked at the educational achievement gap in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. If you just look on ethnic minorities, for African-American children, only 11% can do math to grade level, and 23% can read to grade level.
Okay.
This is after they pumped billions of dollars into the schools.
What number should that be? What percentage would be a good percentage for John?
I would like to see it well over up in the 70s or 80%.
Okay, but has it ever been like that?
I would have to go back and look.
Like, can we say, let's maybe, a little bit of homework, which means I'm probably going to get some homework too later. What was the highest percentage to grade of proficiency to grade level between blacks and Hispanics?
I would have to go back and look at that.
I'm just saying we could look that up.
I could look that up. But, I mean, we spend well over $800 billion on education through K through 12.
Yeah.
Half the kids in America are reading at grade level. And if you look at the ethnic minorities, blacks, Hispanics, they're like 25% are reading at grade level. Baltimore. Yeah. And when I go back to Washington, D.C., I looked at the superintendent of public education. They're making $300,000-$400,000. Baltimore's public superintendent of public education got a pay raise, I think in 2023. Mm-hmm. So she's making a good high six-figure salary. And even like this right now with this bridge collapse, the mayor of Baltimore is fighting back. Well, he's been the mayor since 2020. He's been there for a while.
Yeah.
And has anybody looked at the schools in Baltimore? There was a report that came out in September of last year where 95% of the children in Baltimore are not reading or doing math or English to grade level.
Mm-hmm.
And these are majority minority children.
Yeah.
So, and I look at it, who's to say this child or that son or that boy or that girl is not going to invent something or create something or build something? Or
Yeah, they're just not getting the opportunity.
they're not given the opportunity. And they always talk about these Black Lives Matter, but let's look at the educational result. California epitomizes this. What they do, their educational system is a joke, but yet they spend billions of dollars with a low return. Washington State removed the requirement, the same as Oregon, to pass any proficiency to get out of school.
Okay, someone types in Jeff. Whatever. So Jeff chimes in. He goes, "Baltimore schools have always been underfunded."
That's totally false. Baltimore has the third highest per pupil spending in the country. They spend about around $26,000. They have a $1.7 billion budget. They received over a couple $100 billion from COVID, and their school system is a disaster.
Okay.
So they are very well funded. California is the same way. I know I go back to them. Illinois is the same way. All these schools are very well funded, is they're not getting the results that they need to get.
Jeff wants you to show the work. Is it where would he be able to find
All
that?
you have to do is look at the educational achievement, Baltimore, City of Baltimore, and it'll come up.
Okay.
Any of the educational results would pop up.
Conjecture. You put it up there in the chat. He said conjecture.
Did I say conjecture?
No, he said.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that means.
But I would just have them just Google. I mean, you just go to any city. After the George Floyd death, I Googled all the educational achievements, and they're dismal. Even in Minneapolis, the epicenter of the George Floyd riots, same thing. 75 to 80% of minority children can't read or do math.
All right, Brian comes in with a good question. He says the feds are covering the bridge collapse. Why not the insurance companies? They're getting the pass.
No, that's a very good question. Yeah, I think initially we're going to have to just get things going to get the
Did
construction.
Biden see the opportunity to get a bill and then, like, along with fixing the bridge, kind of capitalizing on it would be considered a national tragedy, that bridge. Did he just see the opportunity of, let's get money for this bridge and money for crane or money for, another?
I know that was part of it, but I think what he was first, he initially stated that we'll pay the 100% cost, and then Janet Yellen walked it back. But what Brian is correct, there's going to be initial funding from the United States to get for cleanup and to get things moving, but
we got to get that waterway cleared really quick because
of trade. It's going to impact, because Baltimore is one of the largest commercial ports on the eastern seaboard. But what Brian is saying, I agree with him. We need to force the insurance companies, and we need to sue the shipping company. Hey, you're responsible for this. You need to start paying. So it's not going to be the U.S. taxpayers paying all this.
Brian chimes in again. He's like, 1.2 trillion spending bill, no money for critical infrastructure.
Well, they already passed an infrastructure bill. The problem I have with this $1.7 trillion, it's just we need to get our fiscal house in order. It's not about cutting spending. It's reforming how we spend our money, from how we acquire things, how we spend things. And this is where I would disagree with both the Republicans and Democrats. Democrats like their cash cows when it comes to domestic spending, but the Republicans don't want to cut anything out of the military. Mm-hmm. Both you and me we both came from the Marines, and I've studied the military spending. There's a lot of areas that can be reformed in spending to get us where we need, so we can have a military that is number one in the world, and no one wants to mess with us. But we need to look at how are we spending, and what are we doing to make, like the Army. A good example is the Army just canceled a $2 billion long-range helicopter program that didn't work. Well, that's $2 billion gone. But we got to stop that. And the military has, over the last 30, 40 years, has wasted over $100 billion on weapon systems that just don't work.
Mm-hmm.
So that needs to be addressed. And these are issues that are not being discussed because if we have runaway debt, which we are getting close to $35 trillion, our interest on the debt right now, and this is what I believe from the Congressional Budget Office, is about $800 billion a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we pay for our national defense. So when interest rates go up, interest on the debt goes up. That's more and more money the U.S. government doesn't have that has to go to pay off that debt, so we're not defaulting.
So education, we spend $900 billion, or
About a little over $800 billion. This is
for
from
education.
This is from the U.S. Census Bureau.
And then, but defense, we're only spending 800.
800 billion, around there.
I thought defense was our biggest.
Uh-uh.
Education is. We spend more money in education than we do for the defense of this country.
A lot of well, this is a combination from federal and all these other areas, but we spend a lot of money on a lot of these programs.
I thought we are so doomed as a society.
But see, this is what we need.
We spend more money on education than we do on our defense budget, but yet it doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't. But see, this is what we need to talk, and what we also need is an independent media, which we don't have. And I know a lot of people who are listening to this may not know who he is. Alexander Solzhenitsyn was a Russian dissident who was exiled from Russia in the mid-1970s, came to Harvard in 1978.
Why are we number one in the world when it comes to our education? Jesus.
We used to be really top-notch.
Yeah.
Now, I went to school up until, I graduated in 82. So in 1978, under Jimmy Carter, he pushed a Department of Education. So prior to 1978, if you're born before that or went to school during that, but you didn't go to school with the Department of Education. Everything was localized, and we had a much better approach to it. As soon as we nationalized it, it seems like we just get another bureaucracy on top of a broken system.
So
now,
to get rid of the education on a national level would be better.
I think it would be better and push everything down to the states and local levels that are more closer to the needs of the students. But look what happened during the pandemic. And I know I keep going back to the state. Okay, your kids were in Florida. They missed a couple, was it a month or two?
Yeah, and then, then it was online.
And I remember you had tutors, they went online, but then by the fall, they were back in school. My brother's kids were living out in California, and his children were studying for 2 years at home via Zoom, or Governor Newsom's kids, were at an in-person learning private school. So it seems like the wealthy elites always love public schools, but just not for their kids. Well, President Obama was the same way. His kids know nothing of the public school system. They were always at private school. So it's kind of ironic that Biden, Obama, Clinton, they all send their kids to private school, but they champion public schools for your kids.
Yeah, and they don't want school choice.
And they don't want school choice.
You can't pick the school you want your kids
and
to
I
go.
just think if you want to get better schools, the parents should have a say where their kids are going to school, how they're taught, and what they're taught. And right now, our kids aren't teaching, even in history, which I love. 13% of 8th graders are proficient in history or civics. And it only gets worse as they go deeper into their school year. We got a lot of people don't even know how our government is formed. They don't know what the powers of each branch are. They don't know how a bill becomes a law. The basics, fundamental aspects of our republic, most people just don't know. So,
give parents more control of local schools. Yeah.
And I would agree with that statement.
That's Brian. Brian seems to be talking.
Yeah, and I would agree with Brian. It's just parents should have a control of where their kids go to school. Because
I know we do.
Here's an example. If a child is not reading at grade level or near grade level by 4th grade, it only gets worse. And right now, they had a RAND report, or the RAND Corporation report about we seeing a vast amount of absenteeism in our nation's schools. So if you're absent a good amount of time by 4th grade, it gets worse and you're more apt to drop out So you got kids not being educated, and they're only going to go two ways. They're either going to be on the public dole, or they're going to, most likely they're going to be in the prison system because they're going to steal to get ahead if they're going to make it out in society.
Yeah.
And that is that what we want? And a lot of the problems we're facing direct result with Brian. His parents should have control and be responsible for their children.
So, other issues coming up. What did you see this week?
Well, immigration's a big one. The debt we've talked about.
Immigration's always been a big
one. Yeah, the debt. Some of the big, Joe Biden, they had a couple primary battles in Vermont, Wisconsin. He won, but he lost a lot of people declined not to vote for Joe Biden. They went to another.
So, that's another statistic we should start looking at is that in comparison of last election, what's the amount of votes not being cast, when it comes to Joe Biden?
Joe Biden has lost. First, he's lost.
Because that's how he's going to lose. If he's not going to lose. He's going to lose because people didn't vote.
Well, he's correct, but he's losing it in the groups that voted for him,
and especially your party, because it's the independents that seem to be the get to win
for both sides.
For both sides, but if your own party is not voting for you, and you're not going to vote for the other guy, they're not voting, and those go away. So it doesn't matter how many independents you have, you're screwed.
Well, because if you look at the votes in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin that flipped back to the Democrats, Biden only won those states by very few, like 100,000 votes, I think, in each state. He won in the other states as well. So it's very close. So if you can't galvanize your base, you got problem. But then you look at some of the ethnic groups like Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, African Americans. These were loyal Jewish Americans were loyal Democratic voters, and a lot of them are abandoning the Democratic brand because the Democrats seem right now, like I said in the previous podcast, the parties have flipped. The Democrats are now the party of the wealthy, educated white who are primarily in the tech field, the media, Wall Street, the corporate America, where the Republicans now, who used to be the party of the corporate America and the white educated elites, are now the party of if you don't have a college degree, you make less than a certain amount. If you're in the blue collar, manufacturing, farming, agricultural industry,
it doesn't count if you're from Berkeley.
You're all going to vote Republican.
Yeah.
And then they see crime in their communities. You see illegal immigrants in your community. You see all these problems.
So when are we going to see the unions do a shift? Because if the unions are more involved with the blue collar person, you would think that the unions would be like, okay, hey, Republicans, we're on your side.
The union leadership votes Democrat because that's where they give all their money.
Yeah.
It's just like in the 80s, the Reagan Democrats, the blue collar workers are voting Republican. Mm-hmm. Now, with Donald Trump, it was totally taken out of context. He said that there's going to be a bloodbath come November.
Well, they're trying to find anything to take out of context.
But what he was referring to is the policies of the Biden administration are going to destroy the auto industry. What you're seeing now, you're seeing layoffs because of this EV mandate.
Yeah, but the EV mandate's going to go away. They're going to know which way to vote because as soon as there's a different, hold on one second. The women vote. This is coming from Brian. It says the women vote. The mama bears are going to be the difference this year. Time to protect the kids.
And you saw that what happened in Loudoun County, going by this one comment that you read. The parents from both sides are tired of their kids going to public schools and taught this woke ideology.
Yeah.
And they want their kids to be educated in like math, science, English, all the tangible things. Like my father only had a grade school education. And when he sent his kids to school, he wanted your kids to learn math, science. He understood vocational training because he was an iron worker. My brother went through the vocational training system, and he makes well over $200,000 a year. So he makes really good money.
Yeah.
But there's other programs we can do. I would like to see technology vocational schools. I had a friend of mine in my church who owns his own cybersecurity company. We should have cybersecurity campuses all over the country. You don't need college degree. The Russians who hacked into our energy, they didn't have a college degree. They just have the wherewithal. We have drones. I know somebody who owns a drone company. He said you don't need a college degree. You just need someone who has the temperament to do all that stuff. So we can do a lot of things. We just got to be smart about how we educate the next generation. At the same time, we provide opportunities for the current generation.
Yeah. All right, John, how can they get a hold of us?
You can get a hold of us by going to ubaldireports at gmail.com. That's ubaldireports at gmail.com. Check us out at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and definitely TikTok.
So Brian chimes in one more time. He says, keep up the great work, guys. Great stuff.
And we appreciate all your comments. That's what we like. I just want to get the message out so we can be addressing these core issues so we can make America back to where it was. We have great education, great environment for economic growth for everybody, not just a few.
All right, and then we're working on All American Gunslingers. We're getting close. Again, I know you guys heard this last time and the time before and the time before that, but it is a work in progress here. Website should be out soon. Follow us on all social media, All American Gunslingers, and we'll keep you up to date. Go on Facebook, okay? Go on your Facebook. Go to All American Gunslingers, and then you're going to follow us or you're going to like one of our posts or something like that. And then you can go in the comment section and say, I heard you on Ubaldi Reports.
There you go.
And that's all we need to do so I can give it to John so John can feel happy that somebody that's listening to this podcast went to Facebook, said you heard us about us on Ubaldi Reports, and you get all the credit because it's going to be your face right next to the comment. So try it out. So with that, everybody have a great day.
Until next Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, keep following